guess we'll start. We have a quorum, right?
Yes.
So good morning, all. This is the Advisory Parking Committee, and it is February 2nd, 2022. We'll start the meeting. So to start the meeting, Laura, could you please take attendance?
Al Titus,
Here.
Richard Astron, Aaron Black, Stephen Kelsinski,
Here.
Lisa Kruger,
Here?
Sasha Nassirian, Judith Paskowitz,
Here.
Lisa Silverman,
Here.
Mary Claire Peckoff,
Here.
Jennifer Yurt.
Here.
Okay, so welcome all. Agenda item next is introductions. And do we have our new APC member present here today?
No.
Apparently not.
I do have another introduction that's not on there.
Okay.
That I want to make you all aware. Commander Albrecht has retired.
I
He's
read
no
that.
longer with us, so.
Yeah, congratulations to him.
Greg Wall here in the back of the room has taken over as our services commander.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name.
Greg Wald.
Okay,
He's taken over as our services commander, so he will be your link to everything that is on-street parking, meters and stuff as such, until that's all transferred over to Ryan. So if you need anything that you used to request from Commander Albrecht, that'll go with Commander Wald now.
okay, great. Thank you, welcome.
Morning, thank you.
Nice to meet you. Next on the agenda is the review of the agenda. Do we have anything to review, Ryan?
Nope, I think we're good.
We're good. Okay. So we need to approve the minutes of December 1, 2021. Oh, by the way, do we have any virtual attendees?
It looks like Richard is on here, but he cannot really participate or vote. He can comment at the end during public comments.
Okay.
Richard's on, but other than that, I think that's it.
Do we have any public? No?
No.
No public, okay. All right, so the agenda. Do we have any comments on the agenda, additions, corrections?
I do have one. I'm
Okay,
really
Lisa?
sorry to keep doing this. I'm sorry I don't have my mask on either. Where it says that I was concerned that Mr. Nassirian had been absent for the past 3 meetings. I'm sure I said, because I put a note in my own thing, that my concern is that for months I've been the only resident member
Where are you?
present. It's on page 3. Well, page 4 of the minutes.
Okay,
Near the bottom, in section 7. So I just want to reflect that I expressed the reason for my concern is that I've been the only resident member available for many months. And that's the basis of my concern. I know that it says that in effect, but I want to really make it clear what I'm concerned about. So the residents aren't being represented by,
Well,
for months
Lisa,
and
just so,
months.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, just so you're aware, several of us are residents.
Okay, but you're not representing the residents. I'm thrilled that you're a
Yeah,
resident.
I'm an alternate, so in that respect, could,
Great. I did not know that. What is your name?
Jennifer Yurt.
I'm really thrilled to know that. I didn't know that's what you were an alternate for.
Aaron Black is also a resident, too.
No, she's an alternate in general.
Yes.
She's not a designated
Okay.
alternate.
So I've been the only designated resident for many months, and I'm concerned about that. And I respect that maybe Mr. Nassirian has a million good reasons, but that doesn't solve the problem. But anyway, what I want to correct is that I mentioned that that's the source of my concern. That's all.
okay, so noted. Do you have any other comments or corrections or concerns? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended by Lisa, to approve the minutes of December 1st, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from December 1st, 2021.
Okay, motion by Jennifer. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Judy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion is approved. So, here we are, crux of the matter. Outdoor dining for the Townsend. Brian, who's going to talk about that?
Nick will talk about the outdoor dining for the Townsend. And then also, Steve, you can stay, you just, no comments or anything like that since you have a affiliation with the Townsend, so, or no voting.
Okay, great. Well, hi again, everybody. It's been a little bit here, but this is a pretty simple presentation for me. It's simply a new outdoor dining deck over on Townsend Street in front of the Townsend Hotel, but the Rugby Grill restaurant. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. I'll admit the plans you had in your packet were a previous version of the plans. We had...
Nick, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Steve, are you recusing?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so generally someone needs to state that they're recusing, state why, and usually they do step out during the portion of that meeting.
Okay. I'm recusing because I'm the managing director of the Townsend Hotel.
Okay,
But in talking with Ryan, I can sit and not speak, or I can certainly leave as well. It doesn't really, it's up to,
You can certainly stay.
usually people step out.
You can certainly stay as the representative for the Townsend. No different if you were the petitioner here for the Townsend supporting that. So any comments that you make won't be as part of the board member, but as a representative of the Townsend petitioning to get this outdoor dining deck. So it maybe be better if you sit in the audience so you don't appear as a part of the board.
I can do that.
That was my suggestion, too, yeah.
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
So in short, the deck has changed very slightly. It's been reduced at both the east and west ends to accommodate some comments that were made by both the engineering divisions and actually Ryan, the parking manager. If you can see here, sum total, it is only one parking space. It's the westernmost parking space before they get to their little pull-in valet area here. They've tucked it back on the west side to accommodate some vehicle traffic here going towards their valet area, but also they've tucked it back here on the east side to make this parking space a little more accessible and a little less dangerous in terms of possible collisions and such with the end of this deck. So really that's it for me. I know I always forget to include any sort of recommended motion language for you, but what we're looking for is some sort of recommendation from you all to the City Commission as to whether or not you would like to see this deck on this street. One last thing I wanted to note, that if you can see it here, it's a little faint, but the architect did include the Bella Piatti deck in this plan. So this is exactly where the Bella Piatti deck is across the street. And I do have the applicant here. It's part of the applicant team, Mr. John Gardner, the architect, for any specific questions.
I have a question. Is it only one space because they're already using a space, so it's one additional space?
It's only one space because they terminate there. The rest is a yellow curb.
Oh, I see, okay.
I can pull up the street view too. If you can see here, I don't know how close I can get without going in. But this is the last space that they'll be using. The rest is a yellow curb that goes into and they don't use all of the yellow curb, just a portion of it.
Got it.
So that's
got
why
it.
they get a little bit of quote-unquote extra space.
Okay. I do have one more question.
Sure.
On this other page, I can show you. I'm just curious because it's showing a north elevation. Are they planning to put outdoor dining on the north side as well?
No, they probably just mean, so if you're standing here on the sidewalk looking,
Ah,
or excuse me,
okay.
standing here on the street looking north,
Okay,
That's the elevation they're showing.
Got
They're
it.
not proposing
Clever.
anything on Merrill.
okay.
How many seats is that?
20, excuse me, 16.
You can fit that in one plus a little parking space.
Yeah, and I mean, if I may say, it looks even a little comfortable based on some of the other outdoor dining plans you've seen. You can see here that they left some room on either side of the chairs for, pulling them in and pulling them out.
One parking place.
Yeah, 1 plus a bit, but yep.
For me, as those extra little
Oh.
blurbs.
Well, does it include an X at that end?
Could you
Yeah.
repeat that? I'm sorry?
Well, in the picture, we're seeing a car, and then there's an X behind it. There's that, which helps for pulling in and out.
Yep.
Does that one parking place that you're talking about, does that include one of the X spots?
Nope, it doesn't have an exit, just, let's see if I
I mean,
can.
you look at that car, it looks like a small compact car right there.
This one?
Yeah. And so, I
You
just
see the X
can't-
behind it.
What?
Yeah, this is the X that you were talking about. So it starts about here and goes a little bit into this yellow curb. And parking spaces are they 180, 200 square feet? On-street parking spaces? Or I think they're a little slimmer there, I heard.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
like
think they're a little slimmer there.
closer to 160, maybe 140.
Okay, so that diagram shows the X in a difference,
This one?
yes.
So
That diagram shows the X in back of that car as opposed to in back of the red car.
Yeah, the platform will be the parking spot and that X. So there's an X in front of that vehicle. And then,
Nick, just for clarification, can you go back to the diagram there?
yeah, so this is the red car.
So what I'm looking at here in your diagram, it appears to me, and I think this is what the confusion is.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It looks to be 2 parking spots, because right underneath the dining deck that you have, it says parking space. You go a little bit further to the left, again, it says parking space.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it looks as it's 2 parking spaces?
I see
there.
what you're saying. Yes.
And if that car on there is an illustration of where the car is in the picture, then the X, where the red car is in the picture, then that X is in a different spot.
correct, I think the X should be in front of that first
Yes.
vehicle, between the platform and the vehicle.
I think the architect does want to speak if you guys are willing, whenever you're ready. If you have any, if you want
I
to
can help
make it
clarify.
abundantly clear.
All right,
Yeah, well, let's bring up the architect.
Hi, John Gardner, Lukenbach, Ziegelman Gardner Architects. There are 2 X's. There's one behind the car to the east, and then we're covering up a second X with the deck.
okay, so that makes for more space.
Is this the X here, John?
Yeah, it's just,
You
if
can
you're
see that.
walking out of the Rugby Grill entry, it's almost straight ahead from, where it says entry there.
You can see it underneath the table still in the background of your drawing. There's the
Yeah.
X.
Yeah.
Well, then that's
So it's 2 parking
2
spaces.
spots.
That's a total misspeak on my part.
Wait,
So we're taking 2 spots and an X. And we're, the eastern edge of the platform extends into a parking space, but we're holding it 4 feet short of the end because of the comment, one of the comments that was made about that space was very tight, so we shortened it up. So we, for 2 reasons, to make that space more accessible and also at the fire marshal's recommendation to make more accessibility in and out of the Rugby entry there.
Okay. Now it makes more sense.
is this going to have any impact on the situation at the hotel in terms of parking with the valets, where the people and the valets have to wait when there's, often there's an event, so there's more than one at a time? I presume that was a place where they left cars temporarily. How are they going to handle the overflow?
I would defer to the applicant if I may. If you, well,
Steve, could you address?
Steve Kelzinski, I'm the managing director of the Townsend Hotel. And what was the question again?
Well, when there's an event
Yes.
or a large group enters, there's a backup of parking. That's something that already happens, and I presume that the Townsend valets use some of these spaces to hold the cars till they can park them all.
Usually there's enough space right in front of the main entrance. There's enough for 2 or 3 cars, and then they move them out pretty quickly. For large events from the Townsend Ballroom, yeah, there is a delay on Townsend Street at times, for sure.
Okay.
I will say from the last year and a half or so, because of the pandemic, the deck, the temporary deck that had been approved that was there, it didn't cause any issues.
Okay. Was that the same size as this one?
I'm not quite sure. I think it's a little bit shorter, actually.
Okay.
I think we reduced it primarily because of the fire marshal's recommendation and his concern for the exit and entrance of that entrance there.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm assuming that the food is going to be served from the Rugby Grill. How is that going to affect pedestrian traffic?
Excuse me, could you repeat the question?
I'm assuming you're going to be shuttling food from the Rugby Grill onto the dining deck?
Yes.
How is that going to, is there enough space for pedestrian traffic to easily get by?
The pinkish hatched area, that's the 5-foot wide requirement, clear area required, and we have, more than 5 feet there. The frequency of staff coming in and out of that door, Steve could address that. We have a service area at the very far eastern end of the deck. That's a service area for staff as well. Table setups, and Steve could address the frequency of how often staff come in and out of that entry, exit.
That entrance and exit is very rarely used by guests. It's primarily used for the service side of it. And the main kitchen door, I can show you from this angle, is right up there.
am I right?
That's the Regency Ballroom, so it's
A little left, Nick.
it's not really the Rugby Grill, it's labeled wrong.
Is that from here?
The entrance to the kitchen is right there. Over further, right there. But guests primarily use the main entrance to the hotel.
So the food is going to be going from that door there, coming out that way. Okay. Ryan, have there been any updates or changes or thoughts as to dining platform regulations? Any talks going on?
Yeah, so,
Anything that we should be aware of?
Nick, I think you can kind of speak more, because your outdoor planning or outdoor dining platforms and stuff, the regulations, you're working on that currently, aren't you?
Yeah, it seems like forever ago I was here that I was saying we were going to start that, but we're still knee deep in it. Our next meeting is actually next week, Wednesday. We're pretty far along. I don't want to, not totally.
What issues are you studying? Are you studying how many platforms should be allowed per block, density, things like that?
They have considered that. At this point, from the platform side of things, they're more considering the time frame as to which they're allowed to be out.
Okay.
If you recall, currently they're April 1 to November 15. They're currently looking at extending it to the end of the year. so April 1 to December 31, just due to the better weather we're experiencing in December these days, and the nature of the holidays. Also, they're considering the design of decks, but up to this point, there hasn't been too much conversation about the number per block. I think I included a map in this agenda as well that I had made.
Yeah, it was really hard to see, unfortunately.
It's really small. I kind of had to make it so, but I can zoom in a little bit for you guys. I tried to, it's really hard to demonstrate
works
in
in color.
GIS, but I just wanted to show you where some of the other platforms are per block. So you can see this here is Pierce Street. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, really 6 parking spaces taken up over on Pierce Street. Townsend Street already has the 2 from Bella. Old Woodward has a few for the Maury. Over here we've got a few for Mare. Maple has 1. So I just tried to demonstrate a little bit as to where these decks are and where the parking spaces are. I'm sorry, it's hard to see even on your projector, but I'll bring up Pierce Street again. So really based on this, at this point, the only one that seems to be oversaturated may be Pierce Street. But of course, we're talking about, another couple of spaces here, so could you argue that we might be oversaturating Townsend? That's, I guess, why we're here today for this, but.
Right. Has there been any discussion as to a periodic review of, the effect of the dining deck on adjacent businesses and parking and congestion, or once you've got one for life?
So at this point, that review, we've met a couple times with the clerks and Ryan and myself, and we've discussed the whole outdoor dining annual renewal process. And the way we're approaching that is to really buckle down on that process. Not necessarily some sort of board level review, but an internal review as these applications come in to review the need, review how it's worked over the last year, review if there's been any major issues, and that's where we would tackle it.
Well, the concern, actually, from my part, is the effect on, adjacent businesses. When I drove down Townsend Street yesterday after work, I noticed opposite the Townsend, there's the salons, there's Margot's, there's Antonio's, there's some sort of financial firm there, I think, and some other places. One of them said IVs. I don't know what they were doing, but. Have they commented on or have had any input, or are they present at some virtual way here to comment on this dining deck?
On this dining deck?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware. So we did, again, just so you know, this is going to the planning board. It was supposed to go last week. Yeah, last week. It is going next week now. So that's where those notices get sent around to all the property owners and tenants within 300
Okay.
feet. That's where we would expect them to show up.
Okay, but not here.
No, not necessarily.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
It does seem to me there's a lot of public parking around there on both sides of the Townsend. There's a structure, and then there's that service lot.
Yeah, that's the positive. At the end of the street, there's a big parking garage.
And at the other end is the service lot.
Right, and that, exactly. So there is sufficient, in my opinion, parking in the adjacent areas to accommodate the loss of one spot.
2 spots.
2 spots.
2 spots.
Sorry.
2 spots, yeah. Yeah, keep reading them.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think all Nick is looking for is a resolution from us, a recommendation to approve this. So then they can use that for the commission and the planning boards.
Okay.
So that's
So, but-
what we're looking for.
Or not, I guess.
Or not.
Or not, yes.
Either way.
I move that we approve the request. Is that stated well enough?
Well, I still have some questions.
Okay, sorry.
So this is going to be an enclosed platform, right? So you can use it almost year round. Is that right?
So not quite enclosed, but covered, sure. If this helps, this is the structure of the awning that they're proposing to put over. So give me a second, I can pull up this.
And Nick, you said April to December 31st, April 1st to December 31st is
That's
when
what the
it would
new
be.
rule
Okay.
may be. Currently, April 1 to November 15.
Okay.
That's it.
So if it's open, it'd be pretty challenging to sit there in December, wouldn't it?
Possibly, but I don't know about you, but I've had some really nice days in December.
Yeah. It's the thing is the weather's changed in December and it doesn't get that cold anymore, so.
Yeah.
So unlike some of the other decks, like down at Market, for instance, but that's, I understand that one's attached to the building, but some of the other decks too have some kind of plastic.
Yeah, that's a big no-no. Those two you're thinking of, there's three that I can think of: Social, Kitchen, Market North End, and Papa Joe's. Those were all some of the first bistros that we allowed in, and they installed that glass, and we quickly changed the rule to not allow. It's called isinglass. So they would not be proposing isinglass in this location, and if they did, we likely wouldn't let them.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Anybody else have any comments?
Nope.
So you can go ahead with your motion.
Oh, I move that we approve the request.
Do we have a
as
second?
Presented.
I second.
Okay, second from Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion passes. So,
Okay.
Steve, you're good.
So
John?
I have a procedural question. In this instance, the surveying of neighbors and all is happening after it comes to us. Is that the way it's always been?
No, I'm not sure.
Because it seems like it should go the,
I agree with you. I think,
Absolutely.
they should be allowed to participate.
well, I think they would be. Anybody can come and participate.
Right, but I think they should be notified
Oh, that we're doing it.
that we're doing this. And then also the planning board, so they would be able to comment.
They have come here, remember when the 555
Yeah,
and
they
all those
have.
people
Yeah.
came?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
they received the notice.
Right.
I'll comment that there's a post, physical post that goes into the land right on the corner of
Yeah.
the property
Yeah.
under evaluation. And they tell you it's going to be put before the planning board. And then as it was mentioned, there are postcards that are sent out to all of the businesses in the area. So there is notification, because I get it as well. The building that's under the review also gets the notification.
But that's just for the planning board, right?
It was just for the planning board,
Yeah,
correct?
so I don't see why it shouldn't be for the parking committee also, because we're part of the process. So, that will be valuable input for our decision-making too.
Right. I think that becomes a little bit problematic to expect residents or business owners to show up at countless meetings to give the same input. I would think that there'd be a choice of which meeting it's more appropriate to do that notification. Just from the standpoint of how many times we tell them, come back in and talk to this board, or come back in and talk to this board, or come back in and talk to the commission. So I think, and it's probably something that we can discuss as a staff, is it appropriate to have it at every step of the way, or is there one meeting where it's maybe the last meeting before it goes to the commission, and that when we bring in those representatives to make those comments? I'm just thinking the more we notice them and ask them to routinely keep coming back, are we gonna get that feedback at each board? Or are you gonna get limited here and maybe limited there and not the same?
Yep, but by the time you get to the last meeting, it's water under the bridge. Because we've already made a
Not
decision.
necessarily.
Well, that's what I'm trying to think about is what's the view of the hurdles? So if you could look at it coming to us first, then I suppose it would be that from that vantage point. Because
Can we
if,
block
if,
it?
if we said
Yeah.
no, then it wouldn't just go to the planning board,
Right.
right? It would have to go back through the city council, right? The recommendation would have to go to the city council,
So,
and then they would say if it was gonna get sent on to the planning board, right?
so if I may clarify.
Yeah.
I'm going to start at the beginning. Typically, the way you guys have seen it is it would go to the planning board first. Then we like to do these stops in between. This applicant also has to go to the Historic District Commission. So we would make those 2 stops in between for recommendations, and then the final stop is always the City Commission. So we take all the recommendations that we get along the way to the City Commission, who is the final decision body. So if you were to not recommend this, we would take that recommendation to the planning board, explain that you didn't recommend it. They would consider it, they would make their recommendation, and they would ultimately send both to the city commission for them to make their final yes or no.
Both what?
Both recommendations.
You mean they might change the recommendation though, and therefore it'll
Sure.
only be one?
The city commission
City,
can.
yeah.
So that's why we haven't run into this before, is because it usually does go to the planning board before it comes to
Usually.
us.
So, I mean, we make our recommendation based upon parking.
Totally.
Right,
Right.
and so,
The planning board is design and other things.
well, and input from the neighbors or the citizens.
Right.
Right,
Because there's a lot of businesses across the street.
right.
Now, in the past, just to clarify, I've made a statement saying that I would vote against every dining platform because I think there's too many of them and they're affecting parking. But seeing that, there's ample parking adjacent to both ends of Townsend Street, in my opinion, I thought this one would merit an approval.
So, okay, so I'm just wondering about this procedurally. You're saying, in terms of the hurdles and in what order the hurdles come. So usually, we're after the planning board. So the planning board has already surveyed the residents. They have looked at the structural kinds of things. Then it comes to us in terms of parking. This time, for just,
So we actually did have them scheduled at the planning board last week,
I
but they
see.
got postponed for, a myriad of reasons.
Okay.
Well-
I hadn't really thought about it in the way you talked about it a minute ago, which is the recommendations can be different.
Sure.
And both of those recommendations cumulatively go to the city council when the decision is made.
For them to consider, right?
So our decision can be independent of whatever the issues are that are considered by the planning board.
Well, Judy, in my opinion, I think it should come here first because we're talking about parking and taking up a parking space. If you don't have a parking space to put your dining deck on, then you can't have a dining deck,
Then why survey
right?
the residents?
Then why
Right.
go to the planning board to design it and tweak it and approve it? So,
If I make a comment as well, just on this particular issue, it's the result of the residents wanting to eat outdoors. And I think in the bigger picture, 30,000 feet, everyone has been looking for direction from the city commissioners on the 2050 plan or 60 plan, whatever it's called, philosophically of how the city was going to approach this issue. The pandemic and the extension of the pandemic has also thrown kind of a curve into it. So residents, businesses like the Townsend, they're getting all kinds of requests from residents to eat outside. And I think that will continue on as we go forward. And the comfort levels of eating outside, because we don't know how long this is going to be. But I think that was part of with this particular issue, I think that's part of it.
that's a good point. I see that, yeah. People don't want to be enclosed and risk,
Some, yeah.
and have an increased risk. Because this is not going away, in my opinion.
I think from a public notice standpoint, though, it does make sense to have the planning board meeting first, because then they're made aware, applicants, the public, they have public notice of the planning board's meeting, and then they know that it will go to, the advisory parking committee, next, and so they will be aware that they could attend that meeting if they've attended the planning board meeting.
Sure. Yes,
True.
along with the
They're
physical
brought into
sign.
the process earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
See, I disagree with that. I think you should assess the land that the platform is going to be on, and then once you say, okay, you can have that piece of property, that piece of public property to put your dining deck on, then you can proceed to, design and things like that, because once you spend all that money on the design and how many tables you're gonna put on and what
Right.
color everything is going to be,
Oh, right.
and you spend a lot of money doing that, and they've already spent money, with the architect designing it, and then we say, no, it's taking up too much space.
Right.
We don't want it at all, then,
Agree with that
a
point, too.
recommendation kind of shoots down all the work and money that's been spent on getting a dining deck.
Right, but there's never been a time that we've approved something before there's a design presented.
Well, it's designed right now.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but you're saying if it came here first, before they spent all the money on the design,
Right.
we would say we don't have enough information.
Right.
So,
Well, no, we're evaluating it on what the density is and how many other dining decks are, and how many parking spaces it's taking up. In my opinion, I don't think we're really looking at the design, what color, how many tables and where their planners are going to be. We do take that into consideration, but I think our primary focus is how many we're the parking committee. So we want to know how this is going to affect the parking on the street and how it's going to affect the adjacent businesses. Is it going to impact their
but
ability to conduct
that's again,
business?
planning board. How it's gonna affect the other businesses.
Right.
That would go back to your point of go to the planning board first, bring people into the process earlier, and then move along, because they would have a second time that they would know that they could come in and make their case. So those two things go different directions. I don't know that I really have a opinion about which way, but
I think you should come here first, because if you don't have a place to put it, it ain't gonna happen.
But also, if they say they need 2 parking spaces for this dining deck, they design and plan it, and next thing you know, it's 3 parking spaces, so it changed, and they already had a recommendation to take up spaces, and it changed from 2 to 3.
Yeah, then it
So we
should come
need-
back
So we
here
need
again.
a
Then it would have to come
design
back here.
before to be able to actually, here's the final plan of, all right, the layout of it, the platform, that's only gonna take 2 spaces and not 3 after we already approved it, or made the recommendation for it.
So I think just a couple things to keep in mind too is, much like Nick said, is this was planned to go to the planning board. That meeting got canceled for whatever reason. Those things are gonna continue to happen in the future, whether it be, a giant winter storm we're expecting tonight that ends up canceling a meeting maybe supposed to be held tonight or tomorrow. We don't want that meeting getting canceled like last week to delay that coming here, to delay this entire process months down the road. As you know, this committee only meets once a month. If something gets delayed here, do we want to stall the planning process or the architect review process? I mean, all that stuff keeps continually getting pushed back. So to the extent that we can schedule these things and the other items that have to get on agendas, sometimes it's difficult to arrange where it's going to go first based on timing and trying to move these things along. And also, once one meeting gets canceled, like the planning board did, do we then change and shift the agendas of all these other meetings and push everything back? I mean, that really delays projects quite a bit. So I don't know that there's a really big difference on whether or not it comes here before the planning board. What you're talking about, sure, each one affects the other, absolutely. But also keep in mind that all of these boards are all advisory boards and only making recommendations to the city commission and to other boards. So
Yeah, the final decision is always up to the city commission.
correct. So
Yeah.
even if this board was to say, we deny this request or we think it should be denied, it doesn't mean that it's not gonna still go to the planning board and ultimately to the city commission. It's just that they're looking at your recommendation and why you denied it, and reading your comments and your minutes from the meeting is why you denied, to take that into consideration for their decision. So as far as where it goes first, I think there's good discussion as far as, I think both examples are good. and it may interchange because of the same situation that happened with the planning board last week. So it's not always a perfect scenario based on trying to schedule these things and how far apart these meetings are, so.
But as a rule of thumb, usually it goes to planning board and then it comes to us, right?
That's just what we've done.
Okay,
I'm not,
I understand that.
I'm open. I mean, if,
I'm just aware this time,
Back to the original question, when does the public notice postcard go out?
so that would go out, it's required by state law to be mailed out a minimum of 15 days before the meeting. So that notice got mailed out. So the meeting was supposed to be January 26th, so about January 11.
Okay.
And then it got postponed at the meeting, which serves as the next notice for,
Okay, so it goes before the planning board meeting.
yes,
Okay,
as well as the city commission.
okay.
Oh, and because this is a special land use permit, just for the record, there's also a newspaper ad that's required to be placed within 20 days.
Which paper does it go in?
Yeah.
We put it in the Oakland Press, I believe. It's not necessarily it's just a paper of local circulation, so it could be really any of them, but.
All right. Did anybody ever get a newspaper anymore?
Not I, but
well, a lot of people read them
I'm a
online.
millennial, so
Yeah.
do I even know what a newspaper is? I don't know.
Put it on Twitter or social.
That's right. If it was on Twitter, I would have saw it probably.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
so, all right. Any more comment on the dining platform and the procedural hurdles that we go through? Okay.
All right. Well, if I hear anything new at the city commission or the planning board as to their preference, I'll come back and let you all know.
Yeah, please do.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, now that that's done, the meeting is open to, oh, but we didn't have any public comment on this issue, did we?
There's no public in
There's no public to
still no
comment.
public in the Zoom, so.
Okay. I just wanted to double check. That's why I asked earlier if anybody was virtually attending.
It looks like Richard has his
Richard
hand raised.
has his hand raised now, so.
Pardon me?
Richard has his hand raised now.
Oh, wow, let's hear from Richard.
Oh, sorry I couldn't be there, but I have a herniated disc and can't sit. So, so one of my concerns about the outdoor dining platform and why it came to the advisory parking first was because of an incident, I believe, Beyond Juice didn't come before us and they were granted a platform. And from my understanding, platforms taking a parking spot were restricted to strictly bistro restaurants. So that's one of the reasons we asked that they come before the advisory parking first. So just that as a public comment even.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Richard on that one.
Only because, we're going to get into that slippery slope, when a bake shop opens or a sweet shop, and they're going to request a platform outside. So, and again, that could have been for the planning board, but I thought that's part of the process that they're going to come back with some of their recommendations because literally, everyone that opens up in a kind of dining situation was going to say, well, am I not entitled to a platform? So, somewhere we've got to set standards and the rules. So that's my comment.
And Richard, that goes to my question is, what's happening with the, regulations and how they're being reviewed currently?
Yeah.
Yes, and if I had a little bit of a say in it, I would say it would be really an unusual request, and it should almost be limited to no more than 2 parking spots for one establishment. Because right now it stands that you can go the entire length of the structure in front of like if you had a restaurant that took up 5 spots on Pierce Street or something, I think the requirements now are you can go the entire length of your establishment. And I think those things have to kind of be some limits put on.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Richard. Any other comment
I
before we move
see-
on?
Nope, I see no other
No.
hands raised.
Pardon me?
Comments or?
No other, nothing from the public.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we got that in. And I should have called for that earlier. That was my error, sorry. So I guess since we're done with that, the meeting is open to the public for items not on the agenda. Do we
I
any-
have one.
Judy has one. All right. Go, Judy. go.
Okay, does anybody else on the committee use credit card in the meters besides me?
I try really hard to avoid it.
Oh, no.
Okay, I do. And I've been using it at 6. Now, I was assuming the problems I were having was because the weather was so cold, and so that things were malfunctioning. But yesterday, I had the same problem, and that is, I had to put my card in 3-4 times, and it would come back saying it was being put in the wrong way, as though the strip wasn't on top. And so I wonder if you've been hearing any of that, where people, got a ticket, and then what they come in and say is, it wouldn't read my card.
I've not heard any of that communication.
So this happened to me 3 different days,
And you said this was at lot 6?
yes,
Okay.
on different meters. So I don't think it's peculiar to lot 6, I wouldn't guess.
Okay.
Did you try different cards?
No, but in the end, there was nothing wrong with that card. It ended up taking that card, but it kept on telling me the wrong message. So, anyway, that's just
I can,
some, and I don't know how we would get more input on that in terms of people.
So we track all complaints that we get regarding the meters being defective or not working properly, whether it's battery issues, card reader issues, not giving you the appropriate time you paid for, all those type of things. We do have a team of meter maintenance staff that goes out daily to address any of those meters that are not working properly. So certainly the best thing to do is to contact us and report that meter is defective. Because then
Okay.
if we start getting a history of credit card issues or reader issues, then we can track that and find out what's going on. But unless it's reported to us,
Right.
there's no way for
Well-
us to know. So, but we do track that.
yeah.
So, but just like I didn't bother, and I'm probably more vested than most people,
Right.
people aren't gonna think they're gonna get a response, and they're in the middle of doing whatever they're doing. I have had patients tell me that they've not been able to make it work, and so they move their car to a different spot because they're so worried about getting a ticket that they go find a meter that is more responsive to them. Okay,
Yeah, and
thanks.
as Commander Greer said, our maintenance staff for the meters,
Yeah.
they check daily. Online, it prints out what meters aren't communicating and any faults in there, so they are checking those daily. And the maintenance staff is out changing batteries and, doing the routine maintenance on meters on a daily basis.
Are they getting feedback about that particular thing? For instance, do they get a number of how many times somebody is getting the message of strip on the wrong side?
On the back end, we can look at that in the system to see how many times and how many people are pressing buttons on the meters. We can also track that and see that they're pressing buttons and inserting credit cards.
Okay, so that might be a piece of feedback that's useful. If you can look at how many times there is that message of the card is in the wrong way, and if it's multiple times on one meter, then
Yep.
they're having trouble with reading it.
Yep. That's something I'll take a look at.
Thanks.
I have one general comment or question. Commander, maybe you can assist with this one. During a snow emergency, are people coming into the city allowed to use the parking garages for free, or do they still have to pay?
They would still have to pay. Yeah, there's no free
Have we
parking.
ever made a decision in the past to open it up?
There has not. No, I'm not familiar with any time that they've done that.
Okay.
But if it's a snow emergency, then the odds of them coming for more than 2 hours seems small.
Well,
Well, I guess unless they're staying at a hotel.
Or more for residents that don't
employees who are
have,
working in the area. And
Right.
or residents that don't have a driveway, or, you know, like there's some spots on my street where residents just have to park on the street.
That's, I just saw something about a city that offered parking garage parking for snow emergency, so that they could help clear the residential streets of cars so they can do the plowing more easily. Seems a
My son lives in San Juan, and they let them park in the structures for hurricanes, so they're not on the street and flooded out. The hotels let them park there too.
It sounds like a good
Yeah,
idea,
I
and
mean,
certainly something we can look
Yeah,
into.
definitely. Especially, you know, maybe if it's a one structure or something like that, just tell residents they can go to, so something we'll look into.
And it'd make clearing the snow much
Right.
easier.
Yep. Yeah. Something I didn't think of.
Is when people park in the street during a snow emergency, is it enforced? Like, is parking
So,
enforcement going in the storm and ticketing people?
Yes. I can tell you it's on a case-by-case scenario. So, yes, we do enforce it. However, depending on when a snow emergency comes out, when the snowfall was, you know, our officers in parking enforcement, if we go in front of a house and we see a car and it's registered to that house, typically we'll go knock on the door and say, hey, get your car to the street so we can plow. You know, we don't want to go out and write everybody tickets, but at the same
That would
point,
just
it
be
is
mean.
enforced and we will write tickets. Like, if we come by the next day and it's all plowed in with snow and it's still there, still a problem, we're gonna write a ticket.
Okay.
But the general answer is yes, we write tickets, so that people don't think, oh, they're just gonna give me a break, but yes. So we do enforce it.
Okay, very good. And any other items anybody wants to bring up? Still no public to talk to us?
Nope, no public.
Nobody likes us.
Well, you know, I wonder if that particular thing could be just put out in the next couple of days, if indeed we do get as much as they're saying, put on the website or on social media about residents are allowed to bring their car to a parking structure. And
Yeah.
You're not gonna get that much response, but for some people, they'd be happy to have an alternative, because, I mean, for instance, I have a shared driveway. If there was another car, then there might not be a place to
Yep.
put it, and some concern about moving it someplace.
Okay, yeah, that's something I'll look into, and, you know, if it's something that we do, then we can blast it on social and do that sort of thing,
Pretty
so.
straightforward, pretty easy.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good point, good point. Can
Okay.
we move on to miscellaneous communications, parking system update?
Yep, just keep everyone in the loop. Parking equipment, starting to draft RFP to go out to bid for new parking equipment. I'm working on that now, so hopefully by March's meeting, we can kind of review that together, just to go over it. Also, the wait list, SB Plus has been working very hard on reducing that number. As of Friday, it was down to 497 people, so, and it's slowly reducing day by day, and by March 1st, Annie said she would have the wait list eliminated, so that's a good thing. Right, Annie?
Looks like it's getting pretty manageable.
New internet has been ran to the structures. They've been connected to the parking equipment. At Peabody, we're still having issues We believe it's credit card readers. So we have approved to install new credit card readers at Peabody right now. Currently, the gate arms are up there because it was causing so many issues and backups that the credit card readers just weren't. One day I got calls from probably 6 to 7 people that it took them over 20 minutes to get out of that. So the credit card readers they're on order and hopefully will be installed soon, so we can lower those gate arms again.
Go there for your snow emergency.
Right, there you go, yeah.
Won't get home.
And then just kind of the violation fine updates. As we said earlier, Commander Albright, he did retire and he was working on this. So myself and Commander Wald, we will reevaluate and get back to you guys at a later date on those. So it's kind of one of those of, he was trying to get it done before he left, but he had other things to do. So we will get to those as well. Then also I included the attendance record, some financial numbers, the free cars revenue, and then the monthly parking and activity report. So if there's any questions on those?
I had a question about revenues and expenses.
Yep.
The expenses, I presume that the huge jump is because we started charging again.
I'm sorry?
I assume the huge jump from June to July in revenues is because that's when we started charging again?
Yes. July 1st is when we drop gate arms.
But the expenses, it's really hard to navigate as apples to apples because they're so different, the list of expenses. It proportionally, the amount has gone up, and I don't know if that's because, the system has changed in accounting or because there were additional expenses.
There's been additional expenses.
Right.
Right, yeah, so yes, and also that we did change, we made some tweaks to the line items, so some of the line items have changed as well, so that's kind of why some of them are different than others.
So, we would have expected roughly, 420,000 in expenses, where there's 480. So that's like 60,000 extra in expenses. And I couldn't really figure it out because the lines are different.
Oh, yes.
Yes, but I don't like to assume.
Yeah, we changed the line items in July, so that's just how they're matching up.
Right.
But also, I guess where specifically are you talking about?
Well, see how, for the first fiscal year, the expenses totaled 842,000?
Yep.
Okay. So the next 6 months, they total 400, I'm so blind, I can't see it, 481,000.
Yep,
So roughly 50% of 842 would be 420, right?
yeah, so we did bring more staff back,
Okay,
so there's some more labor,
that makes sense.
yeah, and then, right, and then the equipment was turned off, so we had to make repairs to have their service tech come out and check all the equipment to make sure it's functioning to drop the gates on July 1st. So there's some expenses there.
If the Birmingham Marketing Committee or the BSD, if they borrow money or we authorize money, where does that fall on the?
That comes from the city side of it, so it's not represented in
Wouldn't see it
this.
on this.
Right.
So will we have the same line items next time?
Yes.
Okay.
Catherine, you look like you want to say something.
I'm just ready to get up if I need to.
Do you have any input for us today?
Well, just to address the expenses, is this on? Last year, our payroll was at a minimum because the gates were up. We also didn't have the equipment on, so you didn't have the R&M that goes with that, repair and maintenance. And you also didn't have credit card fees. So those are the three big things
Yeah.
that skewed it. And then the line items changed because our reporting system, this is how the line items that you see in fiscal 21-22 come out of our system. And the year before, they were different. And I know that's a little confusing, but we want to get to the line items that you see in 21-22. And we can explain anything, you know, if you're confused about the line items, we can explain anything.
No, you guys have explained it really well.
Thank you, Catherine. Anything else from anybody? Everybody good?
Good.
We're done. Meeting adjourned.